To call the purchasing power of Michigan institutions big is certainly an understatement. I would probably give it a more scholarly term like ginormous. All Michigan residents are touched in some way by the purchasing decisions of institutions, whether in hospitals and healthcare, colleges and universities, K through 12 schools, corrections, or by the fact that we are taxpayers. Now that I have your attention, remember that one, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, I think it would be helpful if we could have a brief look at what's happening right now in institutional purchasing. Clearly, demand for local products is increasing. Partly this is market-driven, and I'm sure everybody has heard we need to be green, everything's going green, and that's great, but that also affects what constituent groups demand. In the hospital and healthcare arena, the Michigan Hospital Association now has the Michigan Green Health Care Committee, the A to Z purchasing program. And what that does is to gradually insert local food products into the healthcare food services. This is an indicator that the healthcare sector has a growing recognition of the connectivity between health, food, and the environment. So they've started with A for apples. And since they started this initiative, preliminary data shows that the most movement of fresh-packed Michigan apples since 1999. The College Sustainability Report Card grades several Michigan colleges and universities on a variety of measures, including local sustainable food purchase sourcing. Since these ratings are also used for marketing and recruiting of new students, more campuses are seeing local food sourcing as an imperative. In K through 12 schools, the farm-to-school programs are blossoming across the state, pun intended. In 2004, a survey showed that only 10% of the food service directors who responded were purchasing local food. The similar survey done in 2009 shows that that percentage has increased to 42% of food service directors who are sourcing local food for their school food sourcing. 91% of these respondents said they would buy products from local farmers and producers again. As we began our work, we found that it wasn't easy to get good data about what was happening. Because institutions purchase in large volume, they may sort of have all their food lumped together, or even have it lumped together by categories like fruits or vegetables. But it's very difficult right now to find out what portion of that product category is coming from what geographical source. All we have to do is pick up the newspaper today to know that food safety is a growing concern. In the institutional sector, because they are serving large volumes of people, and particularly some vulnerable populations like school children or people in the healthcare setting, they have to be hyper-vigilant about this issue. So it's understandable that they could be reluctant to want to change their sources or their practices. So what we need to do is to be able to sorry, you can't hear me. Is that better? So what they need to be able to do is to feel confident that the food they are serving, if they're getting it from a new local source, is still safe to serve to their populations. We all know that there are infrastructure gaps, and one of the common ones that we talk about is what we call the distribution gap. But in the institutional sector, they face another challenge, which is because they deal in big volumes, their procurement systems sometimes deal in the overall purchases that they make. So they have all their systems to lump all those purchases together, whether it's toilet paper, bed sheets, and oh, by the way, we need to buy food too. So even if you have an influencer in an institution that decides they want to go down the local food path, sometimes they have a difficulty convincing the people who run their procurement departments that there's a way that they can make it work within center system. Another thing that we commonly talk about is the fact that as we ramp up demand for local food, the supply is going to have to follow. But part of the thing for in the institutional setting is that some of the existing supply is not falling into the institutional bucket. And that has a lot to do with the fact that people who, small and mid-sized farmers in particular, make more money when they do direct sales rather than enter the wholesale market. We found an interesting case study that has to do with the Michigan Department of Corrections. And this study really addresses an interesting set of strategies that addresses both the challenges and opportunities for local food purchasing. For many of those who decide to jump into the local food purchasing pond, they do so hoping they'll be able to learn how to swim once they get in. So imagine if you're new to this arena and you have to figure out that suddenly the food you're getting comes with roots and has dirt on it, and you're getting your invoice on a piece of notebook paper. So imagine you have to deal with all those kinds of issues. So in this case study, this innovative food service administrator and her partners developed strategies to overcome some of these distribution challenges and to address some opportunities. They learned to be fluid. For example, some deliveries are made directly to the farm, by the farmer to the institution, which is typical in many of these institutional marketplaces. In the MDOC's case, if they have trucks on the road, they sometimes, since they're out there anyway, they'll go to the farm and pick up the food. The MDOC has an opportunity in that they have in-house labor that they can use to process and serve their food. This gives them a unique opportunity in sort of a budgetary way, but also it provides structured, productive activity for the prisoners, and at the same time, maybe teaching them some real-life job skills that they can use in the future. On the supply side, one of the farmers who grew carrots for the first time for the MDOC has been incentivized by this new business, a new market, to buy a new cooler and washing station infrastructure in order to supply product the way the MDOC specifies it. A positive outcome for him will be that he'll now have these ready-to-go carrots to be able to market to other purchasers. These partnerships between the MDOC and local farmers have resulted in support not only of this farmer, but 5 additional mid-sized Michigan farms for produce and dried beans and eggs. Preliminary data, and this is where we get to the taxpayer part, preliminary data shows that as a result of this program, $300,000, which was approximately 25% of the total produce budget for MDOC Region 3 in fiscal year 2008 purchasing dollars, stayed in Michigan communities. Now that was $300,000 of taxpayer money that stayed in Michigan communities that may have been gone out of our communities and out of our state for food sourcing. So imagine if we can take that model and apply it to other taxpayer-supported food purchase, institutional food purchasing in Michigan. Corrections is a hot-button topic for sure, but the reality is we have to feed people in corrections, and we spend Michigan taxpayer dollars to do so. We can and should spend those dollars on Michigan products. And like it or not, Michigan taxpayers also have to pay for health care for prisoners. Better Michigan food can have the added benefit of reducing food-related health care costs. And pun intended, that's not small potatoes. Our goals are many, and we think they're all achievable. Although we are setting these common goals across differing institutional sectors, we recognize that progress towards these goals We'll have to track accordingly to the differing opportunities, challenges, and successes, and particularly the leadership of each institutional subset. Increased purchasing and distribution growth will need to move in tandem as supply ramps up to follow demand for local Michigan products. Our third goal of increasing local Michigan purchasing by state processors addresses both seasonality solutions and the potential economic benefits of our state economy, and will require additional capacity from farmers and food producers. There will be simultaneous support for the agriculture sector and food-related entrepreneurial activity. Okay, here are some of our policy recommendations, and there is money involved here, so try not to be alarmed. Two major things that we really want to support and recommend are that we figure out a way to level the playing field for smaller and mid-sized producers with what are called GAP audits. Now those are called good agricultural practices, what GAP stands for. And related to the food safety issues, if they are not already requiring it, institutional food purchasers will soon be requiring of all people that they source from that they are GAP certified. Now, the cost for this GAP certification is sort of an across-the-board cost. So if you have a really big farm, you can probably afford to pay for it. But if you don't have a very big farm, it can really be a financial disincentive to enter this market. So we would like to recommend that Michigan offer a program to offer financial assistance to smaller farmers for GAP certification audits. Also, and this is a heavy-duty one, I know, we'd like to talk about financial incentives or tax breaks. But we're not talking about reinventing the wheel or asking for new big boatloads of money, although we'd probably all like to have that. There are similar programs that already exist for Michigan business sectors that could be used as models for food and agriculture sector. Farming and food-related businesses are businesses, and they can be included in existing or modified state incentive programs. We need to be able to incentivize farmers to transition to food or specialty crop production so that we'll be able to meet that be able to meet the demand with growing supply. I'll try to go through these a little quickly now since I have to wrap up. The state level local food purchasing box addresses what I talked about not having good data. We need to be able, as we move forward, to be able to quantify our results so we can measure our successes and figure out where we still have challenges. Our school lunch reimbursement program, we would like to recommend an additional 10 cents as a match to the typical 20 to 30 cents currently spent on fruits or vegetables for school lunch. We would like to use state economic development funds to make this happen. If we could fully fund a program like this, the program would have the potential to contribute up to $39 million annually to local Michigan food system economy. Again, that speaks to what I said before about taxpayer-supported dollars staying in Michigan and going to Michigan. Sorry, I'm a little out of order now. So together, these policy recommendations would strengthen the connection between our farmers, our institutions, and infrastructure components, such as processors, packers, and storage facilities, and contribute to a more robust local and regional food systems in Michigan. We have many opportunities. Intentional local purchasing initiatives by institutions can help keep farmers farming and promote continuing growth of food-related entrepreneurial activity. We need more entrepreneurs in Michigan to make our state a viable place to live. Easing the barriers for transitioning existing supply into new markets can help better meet demand. Sound policies and collaborative efforts and strategies can be modeled and replicated across institutional sectors and geographic boundaries. And together, we can break down barriers and create new opportunities. More people eating good, local, fresh food will result in improvements in overall personal wellness, as well as a consequence of contributing to a reduction in health and obesity issues. By increasing local food purchases at K-12 schools, colleges and universities, hospitals, and correction facilities, Michigan's institutions can contribute to the economic viability of our farmers, the economic development of our state, and the health and well-being of our residents. Thank you.